Good day. My name is Attorney Anthony Reeves, and this is Q&A Social Security Disability Today Special Edition. As I indicated before, if you ever want to ask me a specific question that you'd like me to go into deeper detail about, please do so. Today's discussion will be focusing on the virtual screening unit. As always, you can always email me at anthony@reevesfirm.com. You can always subscribe to my blog at legalbeat.anthonyreeves.com, or you can always just leave me a comment right here, and I'll be more than happy to address. I had a specific question about the virtual screening unit. Someone asked me to describe what it is, how it works, and what benefits there may be with actually participating in that program. Let me give you kind of a little background. For those of you who may not be aware, every state is a little different, but typically there is a hearing level that your case may eventually get before. Meaning, if you file your application, you get denied once or twice, at some point you're going to be given the opportunity to go before an administrative law judge. There are hearing offices all over the country. And as you can imagine, with such a large amount of people applying for disability benefits, you're going to invariably get a backlog. That's the unfortunate part of the process. So a couple years ago, the Social Security created what they call the virtual screening unit. And what this screening unit is, it's comprised of senior attorneys with the Social Security Administration. And basically what they do, for lack of better words, is they survey the cases from the different Social Security hearing offices from around the country to determine whether or not these are cases that can get approved without having to wait for the entire hearing process to go through. First and foremost, here's the first thing you need to know. They're doing this in an effort to speed the case up. So a lot of times when they're pulling cases, they're pulling the cases that they believe there may be either sufficient evidence or there is an indication in the file of there being sufficient evidence in order to get the case approved. In most instances, if there's a representative involved and they pull the case, they'll contact the rep and basically tell the rep, hey, listen, we need you to update this file because we're reviewing the case. Now, what can happen in this situation? Well, really one of two outcomes. One, they make a determination that you are disabled, and then they are in their position, have the ability to actually write a fully favorable or a partially favorable decision on your behalf. So in essence, they can basically pull your case up and actually make a disability determination based on the evidence that they have. It's great because if they can do so, this way you're not waiting months on months for a hearing, and then after you had a hearing, you're not waiting an additional couple of months, depending on how long it is, for you to get a decision. More importantly, they can make that decision fairly quickly. The other side is that if they determine that they cannot make a decision in your favor, they will then take your case and place it back in the queue. In other words, it doesn't mean just because they've determined that they're not able to approve you doesn't mean that your case is bad. It just basically means that what they'll do is they will try to make a determination of whether or not they believe you are disabled. And if they don't think you're disabled, or let me rephrase that, if they're not confident they have enough information to render a decision in your favor, they will place that file back in the queue of that particular hearing office. So it will sit there until a judge gets to it. Does that mean your case is bad? Excuse me, sorry about the screen jumping. Does that mean your case is bad? No. It just means that based on the evidence that they have, they don't necessarily have enough to make a decision in your favor. Does that mean that that you won't get approved later on? No, that's not what it means. It just means that at the time they conducted their review, they made a determination that they didn't have enough to render a decision in your favor. In most instances, for those of you who are asking the question, well, how will I know if I am being screened by the virtual screening unit? Typically what will happen is you'll get a notification from them, meaning you'll get a letter from them saying your case has been pulled by the virtual screening unit. If you are on your own and you don't have a representative, and most attorneys or non-attorney representatives are used to dealing with this, so they know how to handle it. But if you're on your own and you happen to get one of these, it'll tell you what you need to do. Invariably, they will tell you that you need to get additional medical records to them and that they are conducting the review in order to make the determination regarding your case. Trust me when I tell you that this process is ultimately designed to move your case through much faster. So it actually works out to your advantage if they pull this information up. Now, let me kind of get some questions here. A couple people had questions. They wanted to know basically the pros and cons of the outcome for a hybrid like this. I said, and I kind of explained this. Um, they asked the question, if the virtual screening unit approves your case, would you still have to wait 30 to 90 days to get paid? Now, the mechanism of payment is about the same. Okay, the mechanism of payment is about the same. It's just the disability determination is faster. And then another question was posed to me, is if a virtual screening unit gets the case, is there a greater likelihood you'll get approved better than you will be an ALJ? Here's the one thing you need to understand. They pull these cases based on a review of cases. This is not a random thing where they walk up and just grab a case and say, let's look at it. They have evaluated the case already, and they have made a determination about whether they think your case is one that may be a candidate for possible approval. For lack of better words, it's a good thing when they pick up your case, because that means there's some pretty decent evidence in there that's alerting them that there may be a chance that your case may be one that might be able to get a favorable outcome. Remember this, even if they pull your case, it does not guarantee you are going to be approved. They're only doing a preliminary screening of your case, only a preliminary when they're pulling this. And they may see additional evidence later that may tell them that, you know what, further development may be needed. But I always tell people, when the virtual screening unit pulls your case, it's usually a fairly positive indication that there's some evidence in your file that they view as favorable. But just keep in mind, the disability standard is not different for them. They're using the same disability standard. So they're looking at the weight of all of your medical evidence. So when looking at all of your medical evidence, if they determine, after getting updated medical records and looking at your file, that your file is not in a position where they can approve you based on the information, they just put it back into the system. So actually, the way I would tell you is this. The virtual screening unit is an awesome tool provided by the Social Security Administration in an effort to hopefully identify those cases that are in a better position based on the medical evidence to hopefully reach a favorable outcome. It does not hurt you. It does not slow you up in the process. Your clock still runs. And more importantly, if they're able to find in your favor, it gets you through the system that much faster. I want to thank you again for your questions, as always. I hope you enjoyed this special edition of Q&A Social Security Disability today, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.